What makes us great is that it's in those moments that we that are still here rise up, and what we like to say in the military, stand in the gap.
The tears I shed upon my cheek pose the question, whose answer I seek? Why you and not me?
It takes a lot to give up your freedoms and serve this country to ensure that we guard our legacy of freedom for America.
This is an important part of being an American, is serving your country.
Veterans' Voices, once again honoring those who serve by sharing stories from brave Americans who have put their nation ahead of themselves. Hello, I'm Kathleen Bade, and this is Veterans' Voices, honoring those who serve. Over the next 30 minutes, you'll hear from veterans from across the generations about their time serving our country. 2021 marks 2 decades since the 9/11 attacks. One of the targets that day, the Pentagon. John Rogers introduces us to one veteran who will never forget that day or how our nation responded.
When men and women swear the oath to defend our nation, they're prepared to face any danger this country may face, even if it comes right to their doorstep.
And every time I look at it, it's just like yesterday. And
on September 11th, 2001, Daniel Fall was a second-class petty officer working for the Secretary of the Navy. His office was at the Pentagon. At 8:46 a.m., he learned about a plane slamming into the World Trade Center. Like everyone else, he was shocked by the news, but his life forever changed at 9:37.
I heard a loud explosion. I stopped. My ears were ringing terribly, and I turned around and I saw people running out of their office, scrambling in all directions.
Time to move, fellas. The Pentagon was in chaos.
The smoke was just pouring down the corridors. I mean, you could just see the aftermath. People were scrambling. Some were what looked like burned. Uniforms were tattered. Soot marks.
Fall and thousands of others made their way to safety, but sadly, some of his friends didn't. They were killed in the terrorist attack. Undeterred, Fall and many others went right back to work the next day, while firefighters were still on the scene.
The building never stopped operating.
The Pentagon was still smoldering, but Fall and a group of Marines went into the charred offices to assess the damage and remove confidential information.
What had been shock turned into anger, turned into wonder, because at this time we still didn't know who got out, who didn't get out.
And the mission didn't end there. Fall and many others immediately answered the call to serve at Ground Zero. They were assigned to the hospital ship, the USNS Comfort.
It's human nature to want the best result. So the ship was outfitted and prepared to be a rescue operation.
But it quickly converted into a recovery mission. Fall spent 3 weeks in the shadow of the Trade Center's ruins, helping doctors and first responders.
What makes us great is that it's in those moments that we that are still here rise up, and what we like to say in the military, stand in the gap.
Fall and his fellow servicemen were determined to continue serving the country. For them, it was a show of respect to their fallen brothers and sisters.
My decision, and the decision of a lot of us, was we're going to go back, we're going to rebuild, and we're going to continue the mission that our colleagues didn't get to, because that's all they were doing that day. They were doing their jobs.
That dark day will forever stick with Fall, but he doesn't focus on the negative. He remembers it as a time when the military stood up to a challenge and succeeded. For Veterans Voices, I'm John Rogers.
Decades before that dark day, our Navy was hit hard and fast by Japanese forces at Pearl Harbor, and one man who served our country during that turbulent time continues to do so today at 100 years old. Here's Jeremy Hubbard with his story.
Dear Mr. Blake, thank you so much for taking the time today to read my letter.
Fan mail is not the sort of thing most 100-year-olds are used to getting.
There are not enough words to express my deep appreciation for you and all others who have served our nation.
But over the years, notes from total strangers have appeared in George Blake's mailbox.
Thank you so much. It truly means a lot to me.
With gratitude for his role in history 80 years ago. He was stationed at Pearl Harbor, December 7th.
I was only there a few minutes.
1941.
And there was this tremendous sound.
The day America was thrust into World War II.
We came out of the building, the sky was full of planes.
More than 2,400 Americans died in that attack.
I suddenly realized they were all kids.
And you could say a little part of George
19,
died that day too.
Why you and not me?
A few years ago, he wrote a poem that he still can't get through without tears.
I gazed at the list of the young who died, and with pent emotions, I have cried. The tears I shed upon my cheek pose a question whose answer I seek. Why you and not me?
George is the last Pearl Harbor survivor in his small Colorado county, one of the last in the entire country, which probably explains that fan mail.
Very much so.
And the neighbors.
It is very special.
Who consider him
George is very unique. He's a special dude.
a local celebrity.
We had a second one in town, but he died probably 10 or 12 years ago.
Not to mention an outright hero.
You know, he does make a difference.
It's a reputation solidified even further a few months ago when this old veteran set out on a journey to serve once again. Seems a friend who works with a local charity told George there was a veteran in Britain who went on 100 walks to support healthcare workers. George's friend had an idea.
He said, would you get 100 walks in by your birthday? Can you do that? I said, I think so. So I did it.
Did he ever? For more than 3 months leading up to his 100th birthday, in the thin mountain air, 7,000 feet above sea level, there he was every day.
People would come by and say, what walk is this? I said, oh, 31st to the 65th. Till my 100th birthday.
And on his birthday, he's the one who gave the present to his hometown. More than $10,000 raised through his walks to help a local nonprofit serving families during the pandemic.
I didn't mind doing it. I was walking anyway, and I was able.
And that's the important thing of being a veteran anyway.
Ask anyone around here.
Is to do what you can to make a difference in your community.
They'll tell you.
He's one of the very few World War II veterans still left.
From Pearl Harbor to his front patio, service is who George Blake is.
Thank you again for your time today.
It's no wonder they're all such big fans.
That would be a tremendous surprise and gift.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Jeremy Hubbard.
Another Pearl Harbor survivor remembered by the people of San Diego this year. Born in Florida and raised in Buffalo, New York, Stu Headley carried a flame of remembrance for that day. Headley was a fixture at memorial events for decades. He recently passed due to complications from COVID-19 just months before what would have been his 100th birthday. Headley was remembered during a special ceremony on the flight deck of the USS Midway Museum in San Diego Bay. Veterans like Stu Headley are honored in unique ways, including online. One Army veteran did not even know about an honor he'd received for his military service until a recent internet search. Jeremy Hubbard once again with the story that changed his life forever.
Army veteran Mark DeVille decided to Google himself at the urging of a coworker a few years back. He found a huge surprise.
And it came up a recipient of the Silver Star, and I said, well, that's not me. And he said, no, go ahead and read it. And so I read it, and I'm like, wow, that is me.
Turns out he had earned one of the highest honors for valor in combat and never even knew it.
That's why I do it. That's exactly why I do it.
Might never have known it if not for this man.
It feels very good.
Who's made it his life's work to make sure heroes get the recognition they deserve. Doug Sterner spends as much as 16 hours a day compiling a massive database on a website called Home of Heroes. He's documented some 275,000 recipients of the nation's highest military honors.
Silver Stars.
For more than 2 decades, he's combed through thousands of files, folders, and documents, tracking down what he calls forgotten valor.
No idea. No idea.
And that research has changed Mark DeVille's life.
It was describing our firefight in 1984.
Turns out he was involved in a 45-minute shootout at the DMZ 37 years ago as a Russian man attempted to defect across the border.
He crossed the line and he was chased by North Koreans.
DeVille and his unit saved that defector's life, an act of bravery that earned him the 3rd highest award for valor, which he only discovered when that Google search led him to Doug Sterner's website.
It is pretty cool.
Forgotten valor? Forgotten no more, thanks to this veteran who promises to remember. For Veterans Voices, I'm Jeremy Hubbard.
Sterner estimates there are still 150,000 names that need to be added to his database. If you would like to search his records for the name of a loved one, we have a link on our website. Still ahead on Veterans Voices, what the return of honor flights means to veterans across Southern California. And
there's never enough we can do for our military members and their families. We like to say that the service member enlists, but the whole family serves.
a retired Marine shares the inspiration behind his new mission of serving military families in San Diego.
We now return to Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve.
The Marine Corps veteran who leads the Armed Services YMCA in San Diego now serves our nation in a different way. Veterans Voices' Misha DeBono shares what inspires him to support military families, much like his own.
Tim Nye is the executive director of the Armed Services YMCA here in San Diego. He's a decorated retired Marine, and he's dedicated his entire life to serving others.
San Diego's development owes much to the Navy, starting with the visit of the Great White Fleet of 16 battleships in 1908. Within a year, Pacific Fleet destroyers were based here.
We met up with retired Marine Sergeant Tim Nye at the newly installed Marine Memorial at Civita Park in San Diego's Mission Valley area.
Honor, courage, and commitment. We have so many great values that we live by in the United States Marine Corps, but also in our branches of service that we carry on as veterans as well. So it's just about doing the right thing.
No longer active duty since 2013, he's now the executive director of the Armed Services YMCA San Diego branch, where he continues to serve his brothers and sisters in uniform. It's no surprise he would choose a life of service.
My dad served 33 years in the United States Marine Corps. My family lineage goes back to Normandy, and I still have a son today who's in the United States Navy and a nephew who's also in the Navy.
He was Force Reconnaissance, one of the Marine Corps' most elite special ops, highly skilled and trained in all forms of tactical warfare. He is humble and hard-pressed to share what he actually did.
I was very, very fortunate to be First Force Reconnaissance Marine, which is considered an elite force inside of the Marine Corps. However, every Marine's got their job, and every job is important.
Force Reconnaissance on the green side means intelligence behind enemy lines. And as you might imagine, black side or black ops means something different.
Hostage rescue, something of this nature, or much like the assault on Osama bin Laden, going out and seeking that terrorist and taking him down.
Translation, this man is an American hero, one who has sacrificed and risked his life for our freedom. But that's not what he's most proud of.
What I'm most proud of actually is walking across the parade deck and having my dad standing on the other side saying, son, we're father and son, but now we're brothers.
Now he says he has his second favorite job, serving the unique challenges of military personnel and their families. Everything from family and youth enrichment, respite care, the Horse of the Sun Ranch, and the Warrior Care Initiative at the Naval Medical Center San Diego. And he knows the struggles firsthand.
There's a lot of shadows that our veterans, and every veteran, no matter where they serve, they all have their own story and their own personal struggles. It takes a lot to give up your freedoms and serve this country to ensure that we guard our legacy of freedom for America.
Coincidentally, we met on September 11th as our nation paused to remember.
We as a country really need to wrap our arms around our veterans and our military. I'm actually really proud as a veteran to see America and how much it embraces just days like today. There's never enough we can do for our military members and their families. We like to say that the service member enlists, but the whole family serves.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Misha DeBono.
Still ahead, an Army veteran who uses his painting skills to serve and inspire others. And
many of us talk about it. But if you ever have a chance to talk to a veteran, listen. You honor a veteran when you listen.
We now return to Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve.
One Southern California veteran recently got back behind the wheel of a landing craft like the ones he drove during his decades in the Navy. Veterans Voices' Casey Montoya shares with us how the kindness of strangers made the trip possible.
Can't even begin to tell you what a thrill this is.
Ben Reed hasn't been behind the wheel of a Higgins boat for 75 years. The World War II Navy vet served in the South Pacific and has been dreaming of this moment.
As I scanned the room, my eyes locked onto the boat because that's why I came here. All the rest of this is wonderful, but that boat means something to me.
Ben knew this Landing Craft Vehicle and Personnel, or LCVP, was at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. He's talked about coming to see it for years.
He had to go see his boat. It was such a big deal to him.
His daughter started a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for the trip. Within one day, they reached the goal and then some. And on his 93rd birthday, his wish was granted.
Daddy?
Yes?
You want to go get up there?
Oh, yeah.
Not only did he get to see the landing craft, he was allowed to get on board, climbing the ladder to decades-old memories.
I didn't even know I was going to be allowed to go behind the wheel, and I was so thrilled. The memories raced. Not many of us talk about it, but if you ever have a chance to talk to a veteran, listen. You honor a veteran when you listen.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Casey Montoya.
That veteran is one of many who's taken part in an honor flight to Washington, D.C. over the last few years. Those once-in-a-lifetime trips recently restarted with a large group from San Diego making its way to our nation's capital. Nearly 100 men and women taking part in the September 2021 honor flight, the first in nearly 2 years. The war heroes showed their love for America as they take flight wearing red, white, and blue. This trip included 6 female veterans ranging in age from 85 to 104 years old. Each veteran was paired with a guardian during the trip who could not be prouder to have been there.
What a blessing it is, that we finally get the chance to go and that they've opened up the flights again, because this is an important event in these men's lives, and these women's lives. They gave a lot, and so for us to be able to honor him, it's such a blessing.
We also spoke with Wags Wagner. He was in the Navy for 23 years and served nearly 19 years on a submarine. Wagner re-enlisted in 1950. 6 days later, the Korean War started and he was deployed to Korea for a year. Wagner became very emotional while sharing his excitement for the trip.
I have a brother that was in the Navy, he's buried, buried in Arlington. And I'd like to see Arlington National Cemetery. I'd never been there.
So this will be the first time you're going to go visit your brother's burial site?
I don't know if I'll get to see his site, but he was killed in 1957 in a Navy plane crash. But so I'm looking, looking forward to that.
Since 2010, more than 1,400 veterans from San Diego alone have taken their tour of honor free of charge thanks to donations from the community. Today, there are around 19 million veterans in the United States. Many never stop looking for ways to serve. Here's Jeremy Hubbard with how one of them is using his artistic skills to do just that.
You'd never know it from the wood shop and the sawdust.
I've been doing this for about 4 years now, 5 years.
But Zach Smith was supposed to be a firefighter, like his dad and his dad's dad. But it seems a saw and a passion got in the way.
And then God had other plans.
Smith is an Army veteran who discovered a new skill by accident.
Everything is trial and error.
And along the way discovered how to continue serving his community and his country through art. His studio is his garage, where he's designed thousands of these unique and patriotic paintings.
So far today, there's roughly 8,000 pieces out there.
The gift of this colorful art might be most cherished by families who are in their darkest hour.
It's humbling to me that I have a way that I can personally give back.
When a local sheriff's deputy was killed in the line of duty 3 years ago, Zach made a flag and sent it to his loved ones. After that, he decided to do it again, each and every time a military member or first responder here in his home state dies in the line of duty. And sadly, the work has kept him busy.
Just a couple years ago, I remember building 3 in a month.
So far, he's honored more than 20 families of the fallen with a keepsake that honors their hero in a way nothing else can.
These people are all public servants, you know, and this is an important part of being an American, is serving your country.
Sure, maybe his Army days are over.
I never wanted to be a woodworker. I never wanted to be a painter.
But Zach Smith has blazed a new trail with a new passion.
It just worked out that way.
To serve those families who serve us all.
You know, you just have to follow your heart and do what makes you happy.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Jeremy Hubbard.
Still to come, a love story that beat the odds.
We now return to Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve.
Our final story focuses on a love affair that dates back to the 1950s. Frank Giso joined the Navy at 18 years old. After spending time in Korea, Japan, Germany, and Vietnam, he met his wife Arlene on a ship near Seattle. Only a few months later, they got married, something that at the time was frowned upon by the military. Shortly after, Arlene was sent off to sea without Frank. Their time in the military not only brought them together, but taught them appreciation for others and respect for their country.
Life is worth living, and put into it, because whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out.
This year, the Lovebirds celebrated 66 years as husband and wife. Well, thank you for joining us once again as we share these important stories. We also send our sincerest gratitude to all who have and still do serve our nation. You can find these stories and much more on our website. For Veterans Voices, I'm Kathleen Bade.